You are listening to the Logos broadcast with Fergus James Murphy.
Email ray@rte.ie. The Ray D'Arcy Show on RTE Radio 1.
Or you can get us on 51551. Now, our next guest is on the line from a hotbed of attention for today's US presidential election, Florida, one of the big swing states. Fergus Murphy is an Irish student and internet broadcaster, and he's on the line now. How are you doing, Fergus?
Hello, Ray. Thanks for having me.
And it's hot there as well as being a hotbed. What's the temperature?
Yeah, I didn't really think about it, because it's kind of normal, but it's 23 Celsius right now. I just checked.
Nice.
And I must say it was cold in the morning, but it kind of warms up as the day goes on.
Right. We spoke to you before because you ambushed Joe Biden last year, didn't you?
Yeah, I kind of got in his way. He was walking. I went to a town hall event in South Carolina, and this was before he was the Democratic nominee. Sorry, and I tried to pose as a journalist initially, but I realised during the talk and before it as well that they don't want anything to do with journalists who might kind of put them in a spot of bother. So I changed my disguise and I snuck into the crowd. And then as he was leaving, I went up and I shouted at him and got him to stop. And I asked him a question. So that was why I was on a year ago, But at the time, obviously a lot has changed since then. And I didn't have faith in his ability to last the whole thing. And I remember saying that. But he's... I suppose he's done half the job now, and then
just lasting the distance or getting nominated.
Yeah, but getting through the Democratic thing,
Yes, yeah.
But go on.
I was just reading out headlines from various American newspapers at the top of the show today, and the New York Post. It's the only one that we read out that was pro-Trump, but they say fired up and burned out. Fired up with reference to Trump and burned out with reference to Joe Biden. So what are you hearing on the ground?
Well, what I'm hearing on the ground, I must, I would just preface this by saying it's a little bit like an American trying to find out what's going on in Europe and asking someone in County Cork to talk about what's happening in Paris, right? And you're not going to get a good answer about the whole of Europe just from someone in County Cork. So that's all I can give to you.
Yes,
I can just give you one small snippet. But I have been around people largely who would be sympathetic to Trump, and a lot of them have just been really very skeptical of anything coming from the mainstream media. And a lot of them would just say, with regard to the polls, that two things with the polls. Number one, that people actually lie to the pollster as either a way of trolling them or misleading them a little bit, but also because they don't want to publicly say that they're voting for Trump. Now, how much is that a factor? I don't know. But certainly the people I've been around are quite confident, possibly wrongly, and it's looking like it'll be very hard for Trump to win. But a lot of people that I've been talking to just cannot see Joe Biden winning this election. But it's looking like he's probably in the driving seat,
Yeah.
And now, go on.
No, they're saying here, for example, the Irish Times are saying that this is a referendum on Donald Trump. So it's anybody but Trump. They're not voting for Joe Biden as such. They're just voting anti-Trump.
That's exactly it, yeah. Like, there's nothing really compelling about Joe Biden. There's nothing inspiring about him. He doesn't have a lot of energy. He spent an awful lot of the campaign in his basement, hiding away, as it was put, by some people. And then Trump is like a car crash, just running around the place, bumping into people, and some people love that. And then, but Biden didn't really have to do a lot. He just kind of had to sit back. And I was very impressed, to be fair, with Biden's performance in the second debate. They didn't have the middle one because Trump had the virus, I believe. And then the last one, Biden really held his own, But again, you wonder, how much of a difference do these debates make? Because so many people are getting their news only from one side of the equation.
That's I want to ask you about that, because you're from a journalistic family. And you're in a world where journalism doesn't seem to count for much.
No, it doesn't. And I would actually say that there is very little journalism going on. There's more activism on one side or the other. And you turn on two channels and they're talking about completely different stories with completely different tones. And this word narrative is used. They have completely different ways of looking at the world. And I described it to your researcher earlier. And it'd be like if you went if you were listening to Marty Morrissey commentating on the All-Ireland final,
Right.
and on the other station you had Micheál O'Meara-Hurtig commentating on the All-Ireland final, and let's say I was listening to Marty and you were listening to Micheál,
Right.
we would actually be listening to two different matches, even though the same match took place, and we wouldn't even know. We wouldn't be able to, share a lot of a common understanding about that match. And I think personally that is the, let's say,
but here's the thing,
tragedy.
But here's
the tragedy of all of this.
Here's the thing, Fergus. Both Marty and Micheál, to continue your analogy, would have to give the end result. So the result would be the same. Yeah.
Exactly. And you bring up a funny point, or an interesting point, because the results, people are saying that Trump mightn't accept it, or there might be rioting one way or another. And it's looking like it could take days before the results are actually in, So I don't think that it'll be over, in the next few hours or in the next day or two. It could, because obviously people voted by mail a lot.
Yes.
And there's certain things that come with that, So it'll be quite drawn out, I think. But again, it only depends on a few states and a few kind of battlegrounds and all. So it really it's all to play for in certain areas. And it just depends if they are relevant to the result,
Just before we let you go, like a lot of people are planning to stay up all night to watch the results, which, as you predict, probably won't be resolved overnight. Do people, have parties and all that sort of thing in the States? Like, how are you watching it? How are you watching
That's a good question. I'm actually in a sort of a setup where there's not a lot of interaction with the outside world. I'm doing an internship at a tennis academy, and we basically stay on site 24/7. So yes and no. I think some people will be following it closely, but there's an awful lot of people who really are so disillusioned with everything, like they don't really engage with it. So.
Right.
I can't give you a good answer on that, but I suppose I'll be watching it. I'll be following it, and we'll see.
We might have to talk to you over the coming days if this is a long protracted count.
Who knows? Yeah,
we might be dipping back into your world.
Yes,
Fergus Murphy, thanks so much. Thanks, Fergus, for taking time out. Thank you.
You are listening to the Logos broadcast with Fergus James Murphy.